So this is the, sorry, I have my notebook. Yeah, this is community science. And so I've got Parker, Mindy, Jen, Michelle, Azmain. Who am I missing? Stephanie. No, she's not. She's in citizen science. I've got, so the other people I have on my list, but I'm not sure if they're here, are the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, and the South Central Regional Library, and I think that's it. Okay, we're going to need all the seats. Okay, so I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, otherwise I'll take all the time just introducing people. And I'm actually going to ask you to start with the same basic question is, who was your audience and how did you reach them? Tell us who you are first.
My name is Michelle A. Martin. I am Director of Strategic Partnerships with Girl Scouts of Western New York. And Girl Scouts of Western New York's territory spans from Rochester, New York, through Buffalo onto Jamestown. Our audience was the Girl Scouts and their families. We reached by several methods. We had an at-home experience. We had a Zoom presentation as we were one of the partners selected with the Rochester Science Museum. So Dan was gracious to do a Zoom presentation. And of course, as outdoors is one of our pillars at Girl Scouts, we had, on the day of the solar eclipse, we had an in-person experience at one of our campsites. So we had several vehicles in which we reached our girls and families in the community.
Hello, everyone. My name is Azmain Nisak. I'm a postdoc at Wesleyan University, and I was the point person for the solar eclipse event at Van Vleck Observatory. We reached our target audience mostly through 4 different means. One was through community partnerships. So we partnered with our local library, who also helped with the eclipse, and through them, we also formed partnerships with the local school and the Parks and Rec Center, and this helped to get the word out about our event. The second way we also reached out was through our bilingual component. This was made especially effective through our local school's English Learners program. And the third way is through the support that we got from the NASA library AAS, which allowed us to purchase sun spotters, to purchase bilingual materials, eclipse glasses, and upgrade our solar telescope so that more people can enjoy the eclipse. And our fourth main way was through the fourth way was also, I forgot what the fourth way is, but so I would say that really like a mix of different means helped us to reach our intended audiences. So.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I'm an associate professor at Sul Ross State University. It's a very small HSI. The main campus is near Big Bend National Park, which is by the McDonald's Observatory, but we also have a campus in Uvalde, Eagle Pass, and Del Rio. Who was our targeted audience? Our targeted audience was underrepresented minority and indigenous populations located on the Texas-Mexico border. We serve a 19,000 square mile radius. That's pretty big. I literally drive a mobile sim van from, basically El Paso to Eagle Pass to Midland to San Antonio. So you can kind of see it's a very big area. For this project, we focused on Southwest Texas and primarily our Eagle Pass and Uvalde and Del Rio audiences because they're in the direct path. We had, and I think for this type of work, you just can't work in isolation, right? So my background is education, and I partnered, and we're a very small university, so we partnered with as many people as we could. So by that, we worked with our K-12 schools, UTSA, University of North Texas. We also worked with McDonald's Observatory, University of Texas. We tried to collaborate with as many people as we could, the National Solar Observatory. And how did we do that? We just started talking to people, right? Saying, hey, this is what I'm interested in. And, what I found was this is a common denominator and everybody really wants to support each other. So really just working with public libraries and school districts and the city and the county and a lot of other people, because we had a lot of barriers we had to overcome through the project.
Hi, so my name is Mindy Townsend. I'm with the Dudley Observatory. We're in upstate New York. Our focus was actually educating educators, so educating teachers. So our target demo was really K through 12 teachers. Libraries are also a huge social focal point in upstate New York, so we targeted librarians as well. And we really just wanted to make sure they had the information that they needed to observe the eclipse safely and to educate everyone else on how to observe the eclipse safely. That was very important, just the sheer number of people who I would hear say that we were in 97% totality. It felt like a piece of my brain got taken out every time I heard that. So that ended up kind of being my informal kind of focus whenever I talked to teachers or just about anybody for the year before the eclipse, was making sure that everyone knew how to do this safely. And that's what we focused on. We had our 2-hour workshop with a limited number of teachers with the expectation that they would go back to their school districts and tell all of their teacher friends how to do this. And we reached those teachers primarily through Dudley Observatory's existing Educator email list. In the past, kind of prior to the pandemic, there was a really robust teacher training kind of system in place at Dudley before I got there. And after the pandemic, it had kind of fallen off. But what I learned from this is that there's still a hunger for that in upstate New York. So that's something I'm definitely taking forward.
Hi, everyone. I'm Monica Marshall. I'm coming from the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. And for us, we were mostly focused on the residents of Cleveland and East Cleveland. The museum I work at is based in Cleveland, and Cleveland was very close to the center line. So we wanted to make sure everyone in the community knew that there's a special event coming and you have front row seats. And the most impactful part of this grant and how it was able to help our community is because we were close to the center line, we were going to see totality for 3 minutes and 49 seconds. This is something that everyone in Cleveland could just go outside in their backyard and do. So this grant was able to help us go to their backyard. So they understood that this is an environment that can be fun, friendly. It can be a community event, and it got everyone looking up. So we were able to go to a couple of different libraries and rec centers. When we went there, most of our population that attended were teenagers or children. So for this to be a full family event, we tried to focus our efforts to get the adults to come to our Solar Fest days. That was the weekend leading up to that Monday, where we were able to do pinhole projectors. We had a sun spotter that we were able to purchase with this grant. We were able to still invite those communities out to our museum to have fun. And yeah, it was very successful. People are still coming up to the museum now. They didn't even know it was a planetarium there, so they can learn all about the sky, but they also know they can look in their backyards too. So yeah.
Hi, so my name's Parker Lynch, and I am with the Boonshoft Museum of Discovery in Dayton. So we're in Southwest Ohio. So we were a little bit off of the center line, but we still had a pretty good amount of totality. So we knew from the start that we were probably going to want to do something in person on the day of, but we knew we couldn't do too much. We just don't have a physical footprint to really host a large event, which is, we knew if we tried to have any type of public event, it would quickly turn into a very large one. So we had to be very strategic about how we wanted to go about preparing people for the eclipse. And so a lot of our work focused on our pre-eclipse activities. So we did a lot of going out to schools, doing portable planetarium programs, that I found was an incredible way to get kids engaged with what was happening, because you can describe a solar eclipse to somebody, but they're never going to understand what it's like. So for a kid, I found that the portable planetarium was about as close to the awe and wonder of a solar eclipse as you were going to get them. And so I thought that was really great and really effective. The one thing that I wish we'd have done a little differently was maybe engaged with our educators more before going out and doing those programs, so that the teachers had more content to build off of afterwards. Because again, when you just leave it on them, they're busy, they've got so much else going on, it's hard for them to come up with that time. So that was probably the core of our project. We also had lots of in-person shows where we would make sure people knew that we had Eclipse glasses for sale. We had different resources that they could see online. So that was part of our live show in our planetarium every single day in the months leading up to it. On the day of, like I said, we went for a pretty minimalistic event, so we only saw a couple hundred people on the day of, which we considered to be a success. It was enough that we could manage and still engage directly with all of those people and not really be overwhelmed. So we encourage people to stay at home, watch it from their backyards. And so given that the traffic in Dayton wasn't too bad and everything went to plan, we think it went pretty well.
So we have one more. Sorry. We have one more that's online. Give me a sec.
So I'm Jessica Philippe. I'm the member engagement librarian with the South Central Regional Library Council, and I'm filling in for Mary Carol Lindbloom. So our intended audience was library and museum workers, and we wanted to give them the knowledge and resources that they would need in order to plan their own community events. So we partnered with our 3 public library systems, our 6 school library systems, and they could reach out to all of their component libraries there. So we offered 4 webinars and 1 hybrid in-person and online event. We delivered 90 kits to libraries that signed up for them in order to offer some programming. And we also awarded 10 mini grants to help them support their programs. And we created an online resource, Solar Eclipse Live Guide, which is kind of a landing page that libraries use to gather resources and links all about the eclipse. And that had more views than any of our live guides have ever had. Our webinars had more people attending than our usual attendance. So overall, it was very successful for us, and we reached our intended audience, and we also engaged with community members more than we usually do. So thank you.
Okay, so before I ask more questions, does anybody have questions for anyone? So there was a question back here. Sorry about that.
Hi, I'm Ha Hua from NASA Heliophysics. Is this on? Is this on? Okay, great. I'm just curious about what kind of follow-on topics, interests, activities folks are excited about, your audiences or your teachers and other stakeholders are interested in. Obviously, a super selfish question in that, Solar Max is happening, but it's kind of an obscure, kind of a hard thing to get folks to be excited about. Obviously, the auroras have helped for folks at the northern sides of it, but are there other ways and topics and interests that folks are still excited about the sun for? Thanks.
Next week, we're hosting a STEM camp. We have 3 STEM camps for this summer. In addition, we are having a Science of STEM Literacy Conference. This is our 6th one. I also am a PI for National Science Foundation NOIS grant. And we've always had people from NASA or people from UTSA recently come and keynote. And so we're doing that in July, and we are actually featuring our teachers who partnered with us for the program to present. So they're going to present about mentoring and about lessons learned over this last year so that they're highlighted. And hopefully that will be kind of a contagious, to kind of springboard us forward. In Eagle Pass specifically, they've had a 30% increase in at-risk kids just in the fall. All of those, we've We service, there's 15,000 kids. They've all heard about the eclipse and participated in some way there. And when we add Uvalde and Del Rio, that's around 30,000 people. And so I think that I really want to give a shout out to the National Solar Observatory for wanting to work with every fifth grade child. That was very chaotic. I think it was the first for them. I don't know, I'll have to ask Ryan, but we had 1,000 kids that day with 30 future teachers being mentored by a scientist. And that really was inspiring for those teachers, you know, because it's a hard place to be a teacher. And so I think it's kind of cool to see them take ownership. That particular public library had never had a STEM event ever before this eclipse. So that was really kind of great to see, and I'm excited to see where we'll be in the next few years. I have a feeling when I'm old, that's why I'm limping around, but when I was in 5th grade, I watched the Challenger, happen. It really greatly impacted me. I think 5th grade is a great place to target because it can really impact generations, right? And so I'm excited to see what this 5th grade class does in the next few years. So we'll be tracking that.
Just something we're going to try to expand on with the thing we did, the online lessons, is it was sort of acted as maybe a proof of concept or a test bed to see would teachers from these smaller schools in upstate New York that maybe don't want to necessarily drive 3 hours down to Albany to do an in-person thing, whether they would come online on Zoom for a couple of hours to learn about astronomy. So what I plan to do in the future is kind of use the successes and failures of our little thing this time to do continuing special astronomy topics. And we will see if really the motivator was the free eclipse classes or if it was actually learning about astronomy. That we'll see in the future. I'm sorry.
With regard to fostering interest in astronomy and the sun and the moon before and after the eclipse, I think there are a couple of, certainly the eclipse is a really important event that attracts a lot of attention, but even 2 weeks before the eclipse, we had students from an English language learners program who were invited over to our observatory, and they were able to look through the solar telescopes and look at the sun. And I think that, a lot of them came back during the eclipse and brought over their parents as well. So I think, having these sorts of events, before and after the eclipse, it certainly is a way of fostering interest in astronomy, especially those for whom English may be a second language. Also, there are many ways we fostered interest in astronomy as well at the eclipse. So, for instance, we had the inflatable planetarium indoors. And we also have a really great student training program. So we have an astronomy pedagogy seminar that's required for our majors and our master's students. And this is also a means by which students are trained to communicate with, do public science communication publicly, do presentations where they get feedback, and there's also an ethics component to that as well. So that a lot of our students were volunteers were very effective communicators in terms of fostering that interest in subsequent events.
If you're familiar with a Girl Scout, a motivator is a badge or a patch. And so we did have patches specifically for our event. Look up with Girl Scouts 2024 Total Solar Eclipse, including our t-shirts as well as other merch. However, what we found is that, and we're still studying, right? We build a lot of our programs based upon Girl Scout feedback, girl-led programming. And so what we found was from even our parents, which was the surprise factor for me, was they learned something and they wanted to continue to learn. The at-home kits for us had a 70% increase in what we budgeted. We had to deny people from around the country, other Girl Scouts, sorry, because our focus really was on the Girl Scouts of Western New York. And as the requests came in from Texas, from DC, from Maryland, from Ohio, we had to say no. But that tells us that there is interest, that it's growing, and what can we do to foster that for our girls as they develop? Thank you.
Yes, so at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History, after the eclipse, which was a pretty big event, we now have actually closed our planetarium for renovations, just so we can get a facelift, but real quick. But in the meantime, we actually have developed an Ask an Astronomer booth. So we have a nice little setup. It looks pretty starry and cool, but basically the public can come up, anybody that comes to our museum can come up, ask us any questions they have about the sky. A lot of people are still talking about the eclipse, mentions of the northern lights and a solar maximum. So a lot of that talk goes on, and just like, what was that bright thing I saw in the sky? Like, that was Arcturus, like something like that. So, and then at high noon, if weather permitting, we actually bring out one of our solar telescopes. For the total solar eclipse, we actually purchased, not with this grant, but we purchased a Solar Max 3 Coronado scope. And so we bring that out daily, and people are able to see the chromosphere beautifully, and they still bring up the eclipse and the red ruby that they were able to see at the bottom of the totality sky, which was a prominence. But so it's really cool that people still get a chance to go solar viewing, and they bring out their eclipse glasses. They'll bring their eclipse glasses to the museum. So it's not just we used them from April 8th and we tuck them in a book or we throw them away. Like, people actually kept them. Other than Ask an Astronomer booth, which is going well, the museum, Cleveland Museum of Natural History, is for June focused on a lot of rocks, space rocks in general. We actually just had a donation from the Abrams Planetarium in Michigan. They gave us a huge iron meteorite, and it's about 200 pounds. And so that's on display now. And we even have a event coming up on the first day of summer, June 20th. We have an event where we're going to talk about the NASA Lucy mission. For those of you that are aware, which all of you probably are, but it's going to go explore the Trojan asteroids around Jupiter. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So we're mostly focused on asking people, what do you think about the sky, and what about these rocks that are from the sky?
So, interestingly, I have found that I've gotten more questions about the solar eclipse after the solar eclipse than I did before, which is spending so much time trying to prep for people. It can be a little frustrating at times, but I also have tried to leverage that into, now we have solar maximum coming up. Here's something else to sort of be excited about. Here's another reason to come back to the museum and take a look through our solar telescope again. Sure, you saw it today, but what about in a couple of weeks or a couple of months where maybe we have a new sunspot grouping? And so trying to take advantage of that and leverage people's excitement that's still there about the solar eclipse, especially kids. We had a camp group that was in there last Friday, and before I showed them our totality show, which is what they were going to see that day, I asked them, I was like, how many of you, got to see the eclipse? And it wasn't just like, oh, I got to see it. They were all like, yeah, me. And so they really are. It had an impact on them, and we need to continue to tap into that while we can and while that's still so fresh on their minds and they're still excited and engaged.
So last person on the panel is Jessica. What would you like to add?
So I'll just add that directly following the eclipse, all of our member libraries became centers for recycling those glasses and making sure that they get to the next eclipse. So that was a really great effort. One of our webinars focused on meeting our regional astronomical societies and observatories and other science organizations. So I am hoping to see our libraries partnering with those organizations more going forward. I've also heard of our school libraries doing programming around that inflatable planetarium. And I think we've seen some more collection development and ordering books and materials around science topics. So those were all really positive developments that came out of this.
Excellent. Well, I would like to thank the panel for their awesome conversation right now. And again, you can always talk to them when they're not on the panel. So let's give them a round of applause.